CM Punk mocks All Elite Wrestling and AEW World Champion MJF over recent television ratings in an Instagram comment. Speaking of Punk, Brody King hangs out with the former AEW World Champion, and Dax Harwood confirms that recent comments about Punk on his podcast got him heat backstage in AEW. Speaking of the ratings for AEW, we've got the ratings for this week's edition of Dynamite on TBS. The Young Bucks confirmed they turned down an appearance for Wrestle Kingdom 17 for New Japan Pro Wrestling. Chris Jericho recently appeared at PWG. We've got news on how that appearance came together. When does Sting's contract with AEW expire? We've got the latest details on that. MJF this week had a controversial line on Dynamite in his promo. Was it cleared ahead of time? And Scorpio Sky, was he backstage in his hometown at Dynamite this week? And Frankie Kazarian has left AEW and signed with Impact Wrestling. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. And let's start off talking about former AEW World Champion CM Punk and current AEW World Champion MJF. Of course, when MJF returned to AEW television at All Out after Punk had won the championship for the second time, he was set to face off and resume his feud with the Second City Savior. But that never happened, of course, because Punk tore his triceps in the match. And most importantly, he was suspended and stripped of the AEW World Championship for his part in the brawl-out fiasco involving the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. But in recent weeks and months, Punk started to sort of rear his head and talk a little bit more about AEW, suggesting that Dax Harwood is right by saying that he and the Young Bucks should put their egos aside and make money. He's also been spotted training, posted footage of him training as he recovers from his triceps injury. Now, AEW World Champion Maxwell Jacob Friedman took to Instagram this week to show off his awards from Pro Wrestling Illustrated. One of those awards was for Feud of the Year with CM Punk. MJF decided to tape over Punk's name and write his own name. Going back to their feud, the two faced each other for the first on the first time on the February 2nd edition of Dynamite, in which MJF was victorious, of course, infamously. That was in Chicago, Illinois, Punk's hometown. Now, a month later, Punk defeated MJF in a brutal dog collar match at the Revolution 2022 pay-per-view. Punk did react to the photo, but instead of just taking a dig at Maxwell Jacob Friedman, he decided to take it one step further and actually mock All Elite Wrestling themselves. You can see the comment on the screen right there. He decided to tease AEW about its recent viewership, saying, quote, "Maybe find some tape for the ratings so nobody sees those either," Punk wrote. Now, it's worth mentioning, and we are going to talk about this in just a second, that actually Wednesday's edition of Dynamite did see its total viewership climb to the highest number since October, and it also saw a 12% increase from last week's New Year's Smash special. When it comes to Punk and AEW, his last AEW match was in September at the All Out pay-per-view, where he became the AEW World Champion for the second time after defeating Jon Moxley. However, after the match, he made some harsh comments about several other AEW employees in the post-show media scrum. He then got into a backstage altercation with the Elite, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. He was stripped of the AEW World Championship and has been off AEW television ever since. He is also reportedly recovering from a torn left triceps injury that occurred in the All Out main event too. MJF, meanwhile, has been feuding with Bryan Danielson since the Dynamite Winter is Coming special, and the expectation is that he will be defending his AEW World Championship against Danielson in a 60-minute Iron Man match at AEW Revolution. That, of course, is under the proviso that Danielson wins all of his matches between now and a certain date to finally get his hands on MJF. But this isn't the only person that Punk's been interacting with this week from AEW, the other being Brody King. Former AEW World Champion CM Punk is longtime friends with King. Now, the injured, reportedly suspended, but not even close to forgotten CM Punk has been sending out mixed signals regarding AEW recently. One minute, he's agreeing with friend and fellow AEW star Dax Harwood that there is money to be made with a program between Punk and his backstage foes, the Elite. The next, he's making snide remarks about TV ratings towards AEW World Champion MJF. Now, Friday appeared to be another day of mixed signals for Punk. On his Instagram story, Punk posted a photo of himself enjoying ice cream with friend, AEW star and House of Black member Brody King. Now, it's unclear when this photo was taken. Quote, "Brody King used to park cars at the Kia Forum, and last night he wrestled there," Punk wrote alongside the photo. He made a post about it, and I just think it's super cool. Go look at his post, it's super cool. King, who reposted Punk's message on his own Instagram story, talked about wrestling in the Kia Forum on social media this week, expressing pride at how far he had come since working as a parking attendant at the venue years ago. Fans, of course, were able to see Kings for a match on Rampage as he and House of Black leader Malachi Black face Eddie Kingston and Ortiz. Now, it should be noted that, in addition to being friends with Punk, King has positive relationships with the Young Bucks and MJF, three wrestlers Punk appears to have some animosity towards. King discussed his friendship with the Bucks previously in an appearance on Talk Is Jericho, and also admitted that while on AEW Unrestricted, that MJF had been one of the many who campaigned for King to join AEW. So certainly King, friends of everyone. Does this mean or hint at anything? Probably not. It's just friends looking out for friends. But nevertheless, social media and the internet being what it is, we love to latch on to a little bit of controversy. Now, speaking of controversy regarding Punk, Dax Harwood recently has been at the eye of the storm when it comes to a lot of Punk controversy and possible heat backstage. Dax Harwood, who recently started his own podcast called FTR, caught some flack following the first episode of it, calling on CM Punk and the Elite to make things right following their backstage altercation at All Out in September. Now, after those comments made the rounds, Punk responded by simply stating "duh" on Instagram, while Wrestling Observer Radio reported that several people in the AEW locker room were not happy with Harwood's suggestion. During the third episode of his podcast, Harwood addressed the criticism and issued apologies, saying, quote, "First of all, for the first narrative about Punk, I can give you 100% God's honest truth. He has never told me to say anything," Harwood said. "He's never expressed to me words that he wants me to paint a certain narrative about him. I can also tell you God's honest truth, and I hope he doesn't get mad at me for saying this because I love him and he is my best friend, but he told me I haven't even listened to your podcast." So for anybody thinking that, that's completely 100% wrong. Harwood stated that Punk and the Young Bucks are all beautiful human beings, and that as someone who loves wrestling with all of his heart, he was just trying to make things right. Harwood added, quote, "If I was wrong for that and I upset those guys, or if I even upset Punk, I sincerely apologize. If I upset my office, I sincerely apologize. If I upset anybody who is letting Dave Meltzer know that the locker room is upset with me, if I upset that person, I sincerely apologize. That was not my goal. My goal was to make AEW better. That's all." Basically, and I love that snide remark by basically saying, if I made the person that told Dave Meltzer that angry, I apologize. And that's all it is when it comes to, you know, all this kind of stuff, when it comes to Meltzer and that. Look, I really don't think Dax Harwood spoke with CM Punk and said, "Hey, I'm going to launch a podcast and I am going to say nice things about you. Even if they're not true, I'm going to say them and I'm going to get you back into this promotion." Punk, I don't think, cares about that kind of stuff. Now, people that do care about certain narratives clearly are the people that are talking to Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez, because they're putting out a lot of different narratives out there. And certainly, I think it's quite interesting. Nevertheless, Harwood acknowledged that there was some heat on him, but saying, look, I didn't mean it that way, and it doesn't matter. Now, MJF did criticize MJF and AEW about their recent ratings, but as I mentioned, the ratings for this week's edition of Dynamite were better. Still not to where they would maybe want them to be, but certainly better. Wednesday night's episode of AEW Dynamite saw an increase in viewership for the program, drawing its highest ratings in months. WrestleNomics shared viewership information on Wednesday night. Dynamite didn't quite reach the 1 million viewers mark, but the episode did average 967,000 viewers overall, a 12% increase from last week's New Year's Smash special. The key demographic saw an even bigger increase. Dynamite was up 28% among 429,000 viewers aged 18 to 49, totaling a 0.33 18 to 49 rating. Both numbers are the highest for Dynamite since last fall, with total viewership being the highest since October 26 and the key demographic the highest since September 28. The episode ranked third among cable originals on Wednesday night, behind only the two NBA games that featured on ESPN. For broadcast primetime, the show ranked 16th. Looking back a year on year, the numbers aren't actually too far off. The total viewership from last year virtually stayed the same, with only 2,000 more total viewers, so basically it's even. Basically it's the same. The key demographic, however, was down 14%, which is a key thing for Dynamite because they were always considered the sort of younger person show, and they always had the demo, but the demo isn't looking as good, it must be said. Now, there was some intrigue leading up to the show, with speculation that Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks, could partner with Saraya in the tag team match against Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. AEW had announced days earlier that Toni Storm would be Saraya's partner. That turned out not to be the case. When it came to Mercedes Moné, all over the place today. Mercedes Moné being the partner. Fans did get a big surprise though. Adam Cole made his return to the company. It would be really, really interesting, and I don't know if this information is out there yet, to look at the quarter hours and see how that fared. particularly if there was any drop-off after not seeing Mercedes Moné on Dynamite this week. Would be interesting to see. Again, if we get that information, we'll discuss it here on the channel. The Young Bucks are AEW World Trios champions, once again with Kenny Omega, but they could have appeared alongside the Cleaner at Wrestle Kingdom 17 earlier this month. AEW's Matt and Nick Jackson of the Young Bucks have revealed that they turned down offers from New Japan to appear at Wrestle Kingdom 17. At the January 4 event, Kenny Omega made his New Japan Pro Wrestling return to defeat Will Ospreay for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship. While many initially expected Omega to have the Young Bucks in his corner, the duo revealed that they will actually be taking some time off whilst Omega was in Japan. In an interview with Sports Illustrated, Matt and Nick confirmed that not only did they reject an offer to appear alongside Omega, they also turned down an offer to wrestle on the card. Teasing their eventual New Japan return, the Young Bucks said, quote, "We were actually asked to wrestle and be in Kenny's corner, but Matt and I had vacation plans that week, maybe next year, who knows." Matt says, quote, "We got a fantastic offer. Personally, the timing and the situation didn't fit for us. I'm sure one day you'll see us back in a New Japan Pro Wrestling ring." The Young Bucks, Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes left New Japan in early 2019 to form AEW, of course. The US promotion currently has a partnership with New Japan, with the two companies notably holding the AEW New Japan Forbidden Door crossover event in June of last year. Omega and the Young Bucks won the AEW Trios Championships back from Death Triangle on the January 11th episode of Dynamite, so at some point in the future, expect to see the Bucks back inside of a New Japan ring. They could have, but timing didn't work out. Sting, the icon. It's Sting is still in AEW, but for how much longer? Well, if you believe what he says, not much longer, because his contract expires this year and retirement is very much on the horizon. Sting has been a constant presence in AEW for over 2 years, both as Darby Allin's mentor/advisor and a carefully protected in-ring special attraction, going back to his surprise debut at the first Winter is Coming event in December 2020. His time in AEW has been more or less universally been viewed as a huge success that greatly exceeded expectations, where the icon has been used carefully in tag team matches that, while they were laid out carefully to protect him, still featured Sting going way and above and beyond what people would have expected of him, with balcony dives becoming something of a trademark, which is surprising for a guy in his 60s. And according to Sting himself, in a feature article released on D Magazine's website, this pleasantly surprising end to his career looks to be like it's rounding up fairly soon. In the article, Mike Paolucci writes that Sting's AEW contract expires this year. Sting won't get more specific, and that when it ends, so will his time behind the face paint. Sting further explains in the article that, quote, "Whatever I do, I want wrestling fans to say that was incredible, hoping to avoid a situation where the reaction is that was embarrassing after a poor performance that shows his age. I just want it to be a great memory and then just say finally, once and for all, say adios." Sting also noted that he came very close to calling it quits after a match he and Allin had against FTR at Dynamite Grand Slam in September 2021. He felt his mobility was compromised by a hip injury suffered days earlier and was not happy with it. The end to Sting's career comes as the legend is set to team alongside Darby Allin alongside the great Muta 2 in Muta's retirement match against Hakushi, Akira, and Naramachi Marufuji on January 22nd, that taking place in Pro Wrestling Noah. Chris Jericho recently made a surprise appearance for Pro Wrestling Guerrilla in California ahead of Dynamite's return to the state. Chris Jericho shocked the wrestling world last weekend when he and the rest of the Jericho Appreciation Society made a surprise appearance at PWG's Battle of Los Angeles. It created a fun one-off situation as the AEW stars competed and won a 10-man tag team match against Kevin Blackwood, Jonathan Gresham, SB Kento, Evil Uno, and Michael Oku. While it was kept a big secret in the moment, this is something that Jericho has wanted to do for a while, according to the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter. The former Ring of Honor World Champion had spoken to AEW commentator and PWG co-founder Excalibur around 6 months ago about the idea, telling the Masked Man that he wanted to be involved in a show at some point. Daniel Garcia then brought up the idea of himself, Jericho, and Sammy Guevara competing in a 6-man tag team match at Battle of Los Angeles, with Jericho on board with that idea. However, he had one slight change in mind, turning it into a 10-man tag that would also feature Jake Hager, Anna J.A.S., and Tay Miller at ringside, side so the entire faction could take part. Of course, with this being an appearance outside of AEW, Jericho brought up the plan with boss Tony Khan to get things cleared, who reportedly loved the idea and readily signed off. Jericho eventually won the match for his team by dropping Blackwood with the Judas effect, and even brought up the appearance on the latest episode of AEW Dynamite, drawing even more attention to PWG, a promotion he compared to ECW in the process. Now, if PWG is like ECW, I don't know. I think GCW is more akin to ECW nowadays, but PWG is a lot of fun, and Jericho has spoken, going back as far as sort of 2018 after he left WWE, talking about how he really liked PWG, and I guess the pandemic maybe slowed things down and changed things when it came to a future appearance. But I wouldn't be shocked if Jericho makes more appearances there in the future, because by all accounts he loved it and he likes getting attention. Certainly he did just that. MJF was the centre of some controversy this week, when isn't he? He's known for stirring up controversy, but some thought he may have crossed the line with his promo on rising Japanese star Konsuke Takeshita after Takeshita made his entrance for what would be a highly praised match with Bryan Danielson on this week's edition of Dynamite. The AEW World Champion made his way down to the ring. Many took this as a great sign for Takeshita's future, sharing the ring with the holder of AEW's World Championship. When things went south in the eyes of many viewers was when MJF poked fun at Takeshita's last name and told him that in America people speak English. This prompted Takeshita to tell MJF to kiss my ass. Fightful, Sean Ross Sapp, is reporting that MJF cleared the promo with Takeshita ahead of the segments, so he didn't just improvise the controversial elements. Some fans simply felt the promo was in poor taste, while others went as far as to call the line about Takeshita's last name racist. Those who opposed that view say the segment was just an example of classic heel heat. In the same promo, MJF roasted actors Ken Jeong and Freddie Prinze Jr. As mentioned, Takeshita and Danielson had a hard-hitting match that garnered praise from everyone around the wrestling world. Danielson ended up getting the victory after applying the label lock. Takeshita never tapped out, passing out instead. Takeshita certainly seems primed for a future main event push in AEW. Posts on social media revealed that Kenny Omega's right-hand man Don Callis recently had a conversation with Takeshita at a PWG event. In storyline, Callis has been scouting Takeshita's matches on certain AEW shows, and if he was scouting this one this past week, he'd be very impressed. But for those that were worried, saying, oh, did MJF go into business for himself? Offensive. By all accounts, Takeshita was happy with it or cleared it ahead of time. That's not to say that it wasn't in bad taste, though. Just because Takeshita was fine with it doesn't mean that others will be, but that is life nowadays. Scorpio Sky, we haven't seen him in a hot second in AEW. Of course, he's been out with injury, and some speculated he would be backstage this week at Dynamite, considering it was in his home state. Scorpio Sky hasn't been seen on AEW programming for a number of months, and fans have been wondering when he will emerge once more. However, it seems that won't be happening for a while. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful is reporting that Sky, quote, was not backstage during Wednesday's episode of AEW Dynamite, regardless of the fact the show was held in his hometown of Los Angeles. His last appearance for AEW was on the July 6, 2022 edition of Dynamite, in which he was dethroned for the second time as TNT champion by Wardlow in a street fight and saw his 70-day title reign come to an end. While Sky was sidelined for 5 months with a leg injury he picked up a month prior to the match, he has supposedly been cleared for in-ring competition, and his absence is apparently due to a lack of creative plans for him. Sky's most recent endeavour in AEW saw him align himself with Ethan Page to form Men of the Year in March of 2021. The pair later aligned themselves with Dan Lambert and the rest of American Top Team. He had been a member of the AEW roster since the inception of the company, signing a contract in January of 2019. In addition to being a former two-time TNT champion, he is the winner of the 2021 Face of the Revolution ladder match and is one half of the inaugural AEW World Tag Team Champions alongside former SCU teammate Frankie Kazarian. Now, speaking of Frankie Kazarian as well, it's a good segue when we talk about that because Frankie Kazarian is done with AEW, signing officially a long-term deal with Impact Wrestling. Impact Wrestling recently held their Hard to Kill 2022 pay-per-view, and it proved to be very newsworthy. One reason is that the show featured Frankie Kazarian, who is still featured on AEW's roster page at the time, announcing that he had signed a long-term contract with Impact. Now, Kazarian was one of the original AEW signings in 2019, working there alongside Christopher Daniels and Scorpio Sky as SCU, and becoming one half of the company's inaugural tag team champions with Sky. However, Kazarian has been de-emphasized for a while, and he's been loaned out to Impact on a semi-regular basis. Kazarian explained in a promo at Hard to Kill, quote, "Last year, I had the opportunity to come back to Impact Wrestling, and I won the X Division title. I fought for the world title, and I did all of that as a guest in this house. And when I went back where I was, and I was surrounded by strangers that I thought were my friends, and something just didn't seem right. I learned a long time ago that in this life, in this business, if you do not stand up for yourself, nobody else will. And I learned that I hate complacency. Very recently, I had a decision to make, and that was, do I sit idly by, keep my mouth shut, and be complacent, or do I bet on myself and walk away? Well, you guys don't have to wait long for an answer, because I'm here to tell you that earlier today, I signed a long-term contract with Impact Wrestling. Kazarian last wrestled for AEW at the December 21 tapings in San Antonio, Texas, where he lost to the aforementioned Konsuke Takeshita in a match recorded for the December 26 edition of Dark Elevation. He had previously been on a winning streak on AEW's YouTube shows. Now, some people were speculating, is this a work? Is he just being loaned back out to Impact once again? Well, PW Insider is reporting that the word backstage at the show is that Kazarian pretty much told the truth about what happened in his promo. The report notes that after his Impact World title bout against Josh Alexander at Overdrive in November, Kazarian asked AEW for his release, and it was granted. It was reportedly an amicable situation based around Kazarian wanting to push himself harder as he's getting closer to the latter point of his career. The former AEW World Tag Team Champion believed that in Impact he had a chance to be more in the mix than he'd likely be able to get the opportunity to do in AEW, given how massive that company's roster is. The report also notes that Kazarian did business the right way and would be welcomed back into the locker room anytime, but going forward, he's with Impact. As previously noted, Kazarian noted that he had signed a long-term contract with Impact Wrestling. Of course, if we get any more details on the specifics of the contract, we'll let you know here on the channel. But there you go, guys. It's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash the like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.